before the light reaches it. The cold water off the coast of Japan keeps a secret. 40 feet beneath the surface, a shape is moving that has not changed in 400 million years. 20 feet of muscle, more than 50 teeth, each one shaped like a blade and waiting in rows behind the next. Black eyes that hold no expression at all. The great white shark, the most feared solitary hunter the ocean has ever made. And from the far side of the same water, another shadow approaches. Not one shape, but many, moving together with a purpose that looks almost rehearsed. A pod of orcas. Two powers have entered the same sea, and only one of them will leave as the master of these waters. You might expect the answer to be simple. The bigger weapon wins. The older killer wins. The lone, perfect predator wins. But the ocean has been answering this question for longer than there have been eyes to watch it, and the answer it gives is not the one we expect. The sea does not crown the strongest, it crowns the cleverest. How that can be true, and what it cost the great white to learn it, is the story we are about to follow, down through every layer of this drowned world and back up again. Welcome to Lupinski Wildscape, where we explore the most magnificent mysteries of the natural world, where nature tells its story. What lies below the surface of the sea off Japan is not one kingdom, but many, stacked one on top of the other like floors in a tower. Each layer of water has its own light, its own rules, and its own ruler. And to understand who truly reigns at the very top, we first have to understand the world that built them. A world that begins where two great rivers of ocean collide. The Pacific is the largest body of water on the planet. It stretches from the ice of the Arctic to the ice of the Antarctic and covers nearly 1/3 of the entire surface of the Earth. But not every part of it is alive in the same way. Some stretches of open ocean are as empty as deserts, mile after mile of blue with almost nothing in it. Others erupt with so much life that the water itself seems to boil. The coast of Japan is one of those rare, crowded places, and the reason is a collision. From the south rises the Kuroshio, a warm current born in the tropics that runs up along the islands of Japan like a river of bathwater, fast and heavy with heat. From the north pours the Oyashio, a cold current sliding down from the seas near the Arctic, dragging with it millions of tons of tiny drifting plants and animals called plankton, the smallest links in the entire chain of life. Where the warm current and the cold current meet, something close to a miracle happens. The collision forces nutrients from the deep up toward the sunlight. Microscopic algae bloom in numbers beyond counting. The plankton feast on the algae, and in feasting, they light the fuse on everything that follows. First come the herring. In numbers so vast, the surface of the sea turns the color of polished silver. Behind the herring come the mackerel. Behind the mackerel, the squid. And behind all of them come the hunters, drawn from every corner of this ocean to the richest table in the Pacific. From the drifting ice of Hokkaido in the cold north, where seals haul out to rest, to the warm coral gardens of Okinawa in the south, this single frontier feeds them all. And it is in those warm shallows, among millions of creatures, that the smallest resident of this kingdom guards one of the strangest secrets in the sea. The coral reefs of Okinawa are a maze of colors spread beneath the warm water of southern Japan. Seen from above, a reef looks less like a natural thing and more like a city. There are streets and alleyways, towers of hard coral, and hanging gardens of soft sea fans swaying in the current. And like a city, it is impossibly crowded. Coral reefs cover less than 1% of the ocean floor, yet they shelter more than 1/4 of every species that lives in the sea. 1% of the space, 1/4 of all the life. No structure humans have ever built comes close to that. Every inch of this coral is contested ground, fought over by shrimp and crabs and snails and hundreds of kinds of small fish, all packed into a space no larger than a closet. And in the middle of this chaos, one small fish drifts calmly through a curtain of poison, perfectly unafraid. The clownfish, barely 4 inches long, painted so brightly it looks like a dare. The poison belongs to the sea anemone, a flower-shaped animal whose trailing arms are loaded with thousands of microscopic harpoons. Any other fish that brushed against them would be stung, paralyzed, and swallowed within seconds. But the clownfish wears a coat of thick, slippery mucus across its whole body, a chemical disguise that makes the anemone fail to recognize it as food. So the clownfish lives inside the one place nothing else dares to touch, sheltered by the very weapon that kills its enemies. In return, it cleans the anemone and draws other fish close with its bright colors. A partnership written entirely in chemistry, with no words required. But the clownfish keeps a stranger secret still, and it is hidden in something we rarely think to question: its sex. Every clownfish is born male, every single one. They live in a strict order built around one large dominant female and one breeding male beneath her, with the rest waiting their turn in line. And when the female dies, the most extraordinary thing happens. The largest male does not go looking for a replacement. His own body becomes the replacement. His hormones shift, male tissue dissolves, and ovaries grow in its place. Within weeks, he becomes she, completely and permanently, and takes the empty throne. Scientists call this protandrous hermaphroditism, a long name for one of the most spectacular transformations in all of nature. A creature smaller than your finger, living in the arms of a killer, carries the power to rewrite its own body when the moment demands it. The reef has been teaching this lesson since long before we arrived to hear it. In the sea, survival does not always belong to the biggest or the fastest. Sometimes it belongs to the one most willing to change. Above the reef, the water is bright and gentle. Dolphins pass overhead. Starfish cling to the rocks. But below the gardens of coral, in the dim middle layer of the sea that divers call the twilight zone, the rules change completely. Here there is no partnership and no disguise. Here size is power, speed is the law, and teeth are the final word. And into this layer glides a fin, slow and steady, cutting the water like a blade drawn across silk. 20 feet long, more than 2 tons in weight, more than 50 triangular teeth. The great white shark has arrived, and it did not come to admire the coral. This animal is older than almost anything alive. 400 million years before the first dinosaur walked, before the first tree grew on dry land, the ancestors of sharks were already hunting in ancient seas. Continents drifted apart. Ice ages came and went. 5 separate catastrophes wiped most life off the face of the earth. Through all of it, the shark remained. The great white is the finished work of all that time. Its teeth sit in many rows, and when one breaks off in a struggle, the next simply rotates forward to take its place, like a conveyor belt of weapons that never stops moving. A single great white may grow and shed many thousands of teeth across its life. But its most surprising weapon is one you cannot see. Most fish are cold-blooded, their bodies always the same temperature as the water around them, and in cold seas they grow slow and stiff and easy to escape. The great white broke that rule. A fine net of blood vessels deep inside its body, a structure called the rete mirabile, traps the heat made by its own muscles and keeps its core warmer than the sea. In the cold water off Hokkaido, where the temperature can fall below 50 degrees Fahrenheit, the shark stays warm, fast, and sharp, while its prey turns sluggish. It can also sense the invisible. Scattered across its snout are hundreds of tiny pores filled with jelly that can feel the faint electricity given off by a beating heart. In total darkness, buried under sand, a hidden fish still cannot hide, because the shark feels its pulse. And when it strikes from below, it can drive its whole 2-ton body clear out of the water in a single burst of speed, a move called breaching. We will note here, as we always do, that nature is not cruel, only honest, and we will let the hunt pass without lingering on it. For all of this, the great white earns its title, the most perfect solitary predator the ocean has ever produced. Remember that one word, solitary. In this story, it will matter more than any tooth. Leave the shark to its patrol and drift out into the open blue, where the reef falls away and the water turns bottomless. Here, a far older traveler is passing through, in no hurry at all. The sea turtle has been crossing these oceans for more than 100 million years, since the age of the dinosaurs, and it carries a secret as quiet as the shark's is violent. It never forgets where it was born. A female sea turtle may spend 30 years wandering thousands of miles of open ocean, feeding in waters she has never seen before, riding currents across whole hemispheres. And then, when it is time to lay her own eggs, she turns and swims back, across all of that distance, to the exact beach where she herself hatched decades earlier. How she does it is one of the great wonders of the living world. A sea turtle can feel the magnetic field of the Earth itself, the same invisible force that turns a compass needle. Each stretch of coastline carries its own faint magnetic signature, and the turtle reads the signature of her home beach as a newborn and remembers it for the rest of her life. A map written not on paper, but in the planet. She returns to the place that made her, drags herself up the same sand her own mother once climbed, and begins the cycle again. In a sea ruled by speed and teeth, here is a different kind of power entirely, the power of memory and of finding the way home. Now we leave the light behind for good. Not far off the coast of Japan, the seafloor splits open into the Japan Trench, a wound in the planet that plunges more than 5 miles straight down into blackness. To picture it, you could sink the tallest mountain on Earth into this trench and still have water to spare above its peak. Down here, the sun has never reached. The pressure would crush a submarine like a paper cup. And yet, into this darkness, the largest predator with teeth on the whole planet chooses to dive: the sperm whale. A grown sperm whale may stretch 60 feet and weigh as much as a loaded truck, and it holds its breath and falls into the abyss for more than an hour at a time, hunting in water so black that eyes are nearly useless. So it does not hunt with its eyes. It hunts with sound. The sperm whale fires bursts of clicks from inside its enormous head, the loudest sound made by any animal alive, and listens for the echoes that return. From those echoes, it builds a complete picture of the darkness around it, a map drawn in sound. It does not need to see its prey, it hears its shape. And the prey it hunts is a legend, the giant squid. The battle between these two has never once been filmed. There is no light to film it by, and no witness to bring back the tale. We know it happens only from the evidence the whales carry home. Their skin is ringed with round white scars, the print of squid suckers as wide as dinner plates, pressed into them like metals from wars no human has ever seen. Yet for all its size, for all its power, the sperm whale is alone in the dark. The males especially travel solitary through the cold, immense and silent. And here the sea whispers the lesson again, the same one the shark will soon be forced to learn. In this ocean, to be powerful and alone is not the same as being safe. True power does not hunt by itself. We rise at last back toward the light, where the waves break and the surface glitters, and where a group of hunters is moving together in a formation so precise that no human army could match it. The killer whale. The name is one of the oldest mistakes in science because the killer whale is not a whale at all. It is a dolphin, the largest dolphin in the world. A male can reach more than 30 feet and weigh up to 10 tons, with a fin on his back nearly 6 feet tall, standing out of the water like a black sail. He can swim faster than 30 miles an hour, quicker than any shark in the sea. But speed is not his real weapon. His real weapon sits behind his eyes. The orca carries one of the largest and most complex brains of any creature on Earth, and he does not use it alone. When orcas hunt a school of fish, they herd it. They drive the fish into a tight ball and circle beneath it, breathing out walls of bubbles to pen them in, then take turns rushing through the trapped sphere and stunning the fish with strokes of their tails. Every member of the pod has a job. Every move is timed. There are no orders given, only an understanding built across thousands of hunts together. When their prey hides on floating ice, the pod lines up shoulder to shoulder and swims hard in unison to throw a single wave over the ice and wash the prey back into the water. It is a plan that demands perfect timing and a kind of teamwork that only a deeply intelligent mind could manage. And here is the most astonishing part. None of this is born into them. They learn it. Mothers teach their calves, grandmothers teach their grandchildren. The hunting tricks, the signals, the rules of the pod, all of it is handed down through the generations. And scientists have a word for that which they once reserved for human beings alone: culture. Each pod even speaks its own dialect of clicks and calls, so that two pods living a few hundred miles apart can differ from one another more than two human nations do. So now bring the two titans back together, here in the cold water off Japan, and ask again the question we began with. The great white, 20 feet of perfect, ancient, solitary weapon. The orca pod, smaller in the tooth, but vast in the mind, and never, ever alone. When they meet, who rules? The answer is not a battle. That is the most surprising part of all. When orcas move into a stretch of sea, the great white sharks simply disappear. They do not challenge the pod. They do not test it. They leave. And off the coast of South Africa, scientists have watched them stay gone for months at a time after a single visit from orcas. The most perfect lone hunter the ocean ever built, 400 million years in the making, surrenders its kingdom without a fight to a mind that learned to share one. Individual power gives way to collective intelligence. 400 million years of evolution gives way to a few million years of growing a better brain. The ocean does not belong to the strongest. It belongs to the smartest. And the smartest are never alone. That is the answer the sea has been giving since long before we thought to ask it. But answering it only opens a larger and far more painful question, one that no animal in this story can answer, because it is not addressed to them. It is addressed to us. The ocean off Japan is changing faster than at any time in the history we have written down. The water is warming. The currents are drifting out of their ancient paths. The plankton, the foundation that the entire chain of life is built upon, is thinning in sea after sea. Tiny fragments of plastic now float in every layer of the water, from the sunlit surface all the way down to the floor of the deepest trench. Sea turtles swallow plastic bags, mistaking them for the jellyfish they evolved to eat. In the warm shallows of Okinawa, the coral is bleaching, turning ghost white as the overheated water forces it to cast out the algae that feed it. Without the algae, the coral starves. And this is where the lesson of the whole sea finally comes due, because everything here is connected. Without the coral, the clownfish loses its home. Without the clownfish, the anemone loses its cleaner. One link snaps, and the strain runs down the entire chain. The sea turtle loses the beach it was born to return to as the water rises over it. The great white loses its hunting grounds as the fish it follows drift away with the changing currents. The sperm whale loses its squid as the deep grows strange. And the orca, the cleverest mind in all the ocean, loses the web of life that even its intelligence cannot rebuild. Japan has begun to answer. Protected waters are widening. Off Okinawa, people are replanting coral by hand, one small fragment at a time, fixed to frames and lowered to the seabed to grow. But the ocean keeps no borders. The currents do not stop at any nation's line. And a warming climate respects no protected area. A reef that takes 20 years to build can be erased in a single summer that runs too hot. Return, one last time, to the dawn where we began. Two titans approaching the same cold water off the coast of Japan. A great white shark, 20 feet of ancient solitude. A pod of orcas moving as one mind in many bodies. They are still out there tonight, still hunting, still circling the same question of who rules. But the truth we have followed all the way down to the abyss and back is that both of them depend on the very same sea, and that sea is warming and emptying around them. The old question, who is the more powerful, has been answered. A new question has taken its place, and it is a heavier one. Not who rules the ocean, but whether the ocean will still have room for them all. And the answer to that one was never going to be found beneath the waves. It belongs to the species standing on the shore. Thank you for journeying with us to the waters off Japan. The sea holds countless more stories still waiting to be told. And if you would like to be there for the next one, this is the moment to subscribe and travel with us again. Off the coast of Japan, the waves still break. The warm current still rises to meet the cold. And beneath the surface, the titans still swim through a kingdom whose future even they cannot read. Where nature tells its story.